I'm on my way to see Andrew Buckman. He's EMEA MD of the ad exchange OpenX. I'm a bit of a cynic when it comes to programmatic and the fact that they seem to bombard consumers with ads, and I want Andrew to see if he can win me over. Andrew, thank you very much for making the time. I noticed as we arrived, you've got a big chart that we couldn't see the numbers on, but it had trust index.
Yes.
The trust index. What's it about? What is the trust index, and what is it about trust that with regard to OpenX?
Yeah, so that it's actually a chart that's done by Pixelate.
Okay.
And what they do is every month they look at their judgment of quality of a lot of the different ad tech players in the space. So anyone that puts advertising inventory available online.
Okay.
And we've got it up there because for the last 18 months or so, pretty much every month, they ranked us as number one.
So number one for trust, for quality.
Yeah.
What do you mean by quality? What do you mean by quality?
So it's basically a judgment of the quality of the inventory that's available on the exchange for advertisers and buyers to spend money on.
Right.
And takes into account the uniqueness of the content, engagement of users, kind of direct relationship that we've got with the inventory managers, the level of fraud, the level of viewability, a number of different items which mean that this is actually good quality inventory that an advertiser would want to spend money on.
Right. And how do you get that? How do you maintain that quality? So you presume what you're saying is you don't accept anyone, any publisher, or any I guess digital asset onto your platform. Is that a manual process?
Yeah, it's a mixture of humans and machines.
Okay.
So I guess it started, what year are we at? About 4 years ago, so 2012, when we took quite a long, hard look at our exchange and both the publishers and the traffic that was on the exchange.
Right.
And we're trying to figure out how can we take everything that we've got and actually make it scalable, international, global.
Yeah.
And we decided that the underpinning factor of that needed to be the level of trust that there was in the exchange, that buyers would be willing to come and buy from wherever they were because of the halo effect of the quality of our traffic.
Right.
So we put on board a marketplace quality team, which was then and still is about 5% of the total human resources of the company.
And how big are you now?
About 500 people now.
Okay.
And
that's a significant resource.
It's a big investment in terms of human resource.
Yeah.
And one of the first tasks of that team was to look at the inventory that was on there, and they identified that about 30% of the inventory we had then in 2012 was not of the level of quality that we'd want. It was either non-human traffic, so sort of traffic that was being viewed by bots, non-viewable traffic, i.e. wasn't appearing on anywhere a human being could actually see it, or just downright fraud.
Well, that's huge, isn't it?
It's a big number. And
that was back in 2012.
Exactly. And it's a number that we had to take to the board to say we want to get rid of all this traffic, which means all of this revenue, and that's a tough conversation to have with any board. And it's also a conversation we had to take to publishers. So some of the publishers, they kind of expect that kind of conversation at some point because they know they're providing fraudulent traffic. But some of them are not. You go to some very high quality publishers.
Kind of names that you and I would know as household names.
Completely, yes, high brand publishers. And through no fault of their own, some of their inventory is fraudulent. And that can be because they are users' computers that have been infected by a virus or a bot that will then, without the user or the site being aware, actually go and download sites, download pages and content, view ads, click on ads, and generate fraudulent revenue that way. So this is everything that we needed to cut out.
Right.
So we put in place a lot of processes. So first of all, this kind of human layer where the marketplace quality team will look at every single website that goes onto the exchange and scan them for a number of different quality aspects.
Right.
We're talking about user engagement. We're talking about the uniqueness of the content and of the URL, plus this kind of intuition feel which you can't get from a machine. As you sit down as a human being and look at a site, sometimes you can just tell if that's legit or not legit.
Right. Okay.
And then we back that up with machines.
Yeah.
Because we manage about 245, 250 billion ad requests each month. So that kind of scale, you can't do it just with human beings.
How many is it possible? How many websites does 250 billion ad requests kind of
that is a good question.
Or how many publishers do you have on your How many publishers do you have on your platform? Is that another way of looking at it? Maybe confidential.
It is. Yeah, it's several. I don't have the actual number. It's several hundred, but I don't have the actual number actually on that.
Yeah.
So I could possibly back that up later on.
The 250 billion ad requests, so a huge number.
Yes, a very large number. And then it's and the way we look at it is we kind of compare it with, or the way I compare it is with the credit card industry.
Yeah.
So if you think of your credit card that you got in your pocket and it's got a little electronic chip on it, and that monitors every single individual transaction, and it basically uses that to enter in your chip so that the bank knows that it's a legitimate transaction.
Yeah.
And we do very much the same. We have a little piece of code that goes onto the user's device.
Yeah. Okay.
And analyzes the behavior of that device in relation to the publisher's site to see is that a human being or is not a human being.
Okay.
Is that indicative of fraudulent or non-fraudulent traffic?
Yeah.
And then also, much like the credit card industry, is we then go back through all the data on a regular basis and see if we can spot any underlying patterns which might indicate fraud.
Right.
Or might indicate low viewability or inappropriate placements or anything like that, and to go back so that we can not charge the buyers for anything that they may have shown.
Wow.
And
okay.
because of those processes and a number of others which we try and share as much as possible with the market, we've been consistently ranked number one by Pixelate in their trust index.
Oh, congrats! That's amazing.
So it was a hard step to take 4 years ago.
I bet it was.
But it's been
turning down revenue.
Been worthwhile now. Yes.
And is trust becoming a key battleground then amongst in the industry as a kind of as a differentiator?
Yes, very much. I mean, we did a bit of research at the end of last year and asked a few hundred publishers and buyers around Europe what they thought of programmatic, and 95% of them said that programmatic represents great value for money. And so, I mean, that was great. We probably should have stopped there because the next question was, is quality an issue for you? And 94% of them said that yes. And it is a big problem for them. And this perception of quality and the trust and the inventory, both in what is there to buy from a buyer's perspective, and both of the ads and the creatives that are being placed on publisher sites by the sellers, there is a unease in general as to the lack of quality that there is there.
And so from the unease from the publisher's side is they don't quite know what might appear on their site. Is that and then and I guess and then from obviously the buyer's side, if they're placing their content on fraudulent properties or it's fraudulent bots clicking on it, etc., they're paying too much for it.
Yes.
And efficiency goes out of the market.
Well, when we look at it from a buyer's perspective, I mean, traffic quality for them falls into three buckets.
Right.
So first off is brand safety.
Yeah.
I mean, is this a piece of inventory where they would want their ad to appear?
Okay.
Is it relevant to their brand?
Yeah.
And is it safe for their brand to appear?
Yeah.
Second of all, is this human traffic? Is actually a human being monitoring this, or is this a computer that's been infected by a bot that's downloading this ad?
Yeah.
And then third of all, if it is a human and it is safe, is it actually viewable? You get a lot of, and this is out and out fraud, a lot of places where you'll just layer over one ad on top of another. So you get several ads in the same ad unit, but only one of them is visible because only one can be on top.
Okay, but they're charging all the advertisers are being charged.
Yeah. Okay. And for that, we have our own algorithms. We also work with companies like Forensic and Integral Ad Science and Moat to kind of, and there's a number of different players that help with all this. To manage viewability.
And Facebook, was it a couple of weeks back where Facebook was basically, if I'm right, stuck their hand up and said some of their video clicks, etc., weren't accurate, and some of their advertising clicks. Is that an example here? Is where that will actually damage trust in their platform? Is that where you?
Yeah, I think that does, because I don't think they did anything fraudulent.
No, sure.
the way that they were counting and
Just
the way
inaccurate.
they were counting was not necessarily the best representation of that for the market.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of thing, it does damage
Yeah.
trust and respect really on the market. So anything that by being transparent and we need to do as much as possible to actually restore and improve trust in that market.
Okay.
I mean, there's an interesting piece of research back from the early 70s, which we repeated when looking in the ad industry, and this was going back to the used car sector actually in the US, and it was called the Marketplace for Lemons.
Yeah.
And basically in 1960s parlance, a lemon was a very poor quality car. It's like something you got at home and the wheels are about to fall off.
It's a term we use at Review regularly when we talk about reviews.
Okay,
yeah.
And then the opposite for that was a peach, something like nice and juicy and great value for money.
Yeah.
And the theory went that when you get an unsophisticated buyer, and so like in the used car industry, that's pretty much every consumer out there. If they're like me, I know what the colour is. I know it's got a wheel at each corner, and then that's about it.
You and I together, we're in the same bucket.
Good. I think there's quite a few of us in it. We know that the general value of a car is, let's say £10,000.
Yeah.
But we also know that there's some lemons in there and there's some peaches. But we don't know how to tell the difference between the two. So we'll pay an average price.
Yeah.
Like the lemon might be worth 6,000 and the peach might be worth 15,000, but we'll pay somewhere in the middle. And what that means is that ones with higher quality cars, the ones with the peaches, are actually going to start abandoning that marketplace because they know they're never going to get the value of that car.
Yeah.
Because the more lemons that appear, the lower the average prices that the consumer is going to pay.
Yeah.
And we redid that study using programmatic advertising.
Yeah.
And you have a high quality marketplace with high quality brands. So you've got an exchange which has got The Guardian, it's got Telegraph, it's got Daily Motion in there, a number of different high quality brands. An advertiser like Procter & Gamble is willing to pay a high bid to appear on that exchange because they know they're going to get the return on investment.
Yeah.
However, if you don't police that exchange properly and allow lower quality sites and fraudulent sites to get in there, the advertiser can get less and less return on investment and is going to start bidding lower amounts. So the higher quality publishers are going to start to withdraw their inventory, and the general quality of the exchange is going to go down.
So it's a downward spiral.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
And eventually
okay.
it just disintegrates and disappears altogether.
And is that a risk for the industry as a whole?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, and it's again, it's a matter of trust. It's if there is not this perception of value by the advertisers, they're not going to invest money in.
Yeah.
And that's really what the kind of study that we did before is like 94% are saying there's an issue, but 84 are saying, well, if you fix the issues, we'll spend more.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay. And when you look at the world, obviously you're right in the heart of programmatic. What are the you obviously got trust, and trust is a big one, but what are the other trends that you're seeing out there, the kind of in the evolution in programmatic?
Different ways of actually accessing inventory and putting inventory online, I think, is a big one. So I think the biggest thing right at the moment is what we're calling header bidding.
Okay, and is that sort of containerization and that sort of thing, or not?
Yeah, containers are part of it.
Okay.
I think containers are starting towards the evolution of it. So
Okay.
where I'd see it is that the header bidding was actually brought along to solve for a problem that has occurred with the evolution of ad servers.
Okay.
So if you think of an ad server, it was originally brought in to solve a problem from about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
When you had a site, say for example like Yahoo, who would have sold a campaign to a major brand,
Yep.
and that campaign would have been for a fixed duration in time at a fixed price.
Yep. Would that have been cost per thousand, or it might just been a fixed lump
It
sum?
may have been just a fixed lump
Fixed
sum.
lump
Right,
sum.
right at the beginning, it's okay, we'll pay you $10,000 to appear for a month on that page.
Yep.
Which is all well and good when you right at the beginning, because when you're selling a new concept like that, you're not selling thousands of them in one go. You might get one advertiser, and that's great.
Yeah.
And then the problem comes along when you've got two advertisers, and they both say, I want to be on that page for a month. And some bright spark says, okay, well, we'll just do one on, one off each time someone views a page. And up until then, you've had developers who've had to kind of take the site down, recode the page, hard code the ad into the page, put the site back up. And then when they change advertising, literally, that's how it was right at the beginning.
Wow.
But this is 20 years ago.
Yeah, sure.
And then the ad server was born to be able to actually pace and forecast the delivery of these campaigns.
Right.
And this is still today the main role of the ad server.
Yeah.
And generally, this covers about 30% of the inventory of a publisher.
So basically, to manage the alternate visibility of different ads on a page.
Yeah, and which is sold directly by an agency to a publisher on an IO basis.
Yeah.
Negotiated for a particular period of time with some targeting in there and some level of volume.
Yeah.
And the remaining 70%, which is now called indirect or non-guaranteed traffic, was given over to networks and now increasingly over to exchanges.
Right.
And some of it was managed by SSPs who kind of managed to manage both networks and exchanges together.
What's SSP?
An SSP is a supply-side platform.
Okay. Yeah.
And the role of that kind of technology is to take several different sources of demand, several different types of buyers, and plug them all together so that the publisher would get the highest value from that.
And that's sort of backfill on a web page. Is that the right?
Yeah,
way
it was. I think originally it was. I mean,
Yeah.
the original term for that was remnant or backfill.
Yeah.
And because there was very low perception of value in that. The publishers, well, the whole industry thought that most of the value is in this top sector that gets sold directly.
Yeah.
And the rest, we just do what we can.
Yeah, and the top section being the header.
The top section is like, these are the prime pages of a publisher.
Right, okay.
So like the home page, top of the sports page, things like that.
Yeah.
And the rest of it was termed as remnant because there was nothing really they could do with it. It's a lot of individual users on individual pages that don't necessarily get much traffic. And then as the advent of programmatic came along, you started to be able to target users, target audiences, target individual pages, and the value of that remnant started to increase.
Yep.
And so now it's actually, in a lot of cases, it's worth more in terms of revenue than the direct side of the equation.
Yep.
However, the way the ad server was built is very much based on ordering people by their historic prices. So you look at someone like a demand source in the ad server, and you analyze how much that they've paid for each impression over the past week or the past month or however long. And then you stack rank them based on that historic price. And that's no guarantee of what they're going to pay for the next one.
And that's in terms of likelihood of paying, in terms of or in terms of priority and placement.
It's it's both.
Both.
So
okay.
They are prioritized based on their likelihood of paying.
Got it.
However, there's no guarantee of that.
Yeah.
And so header bidding solves for that to some extent by running an auction before the ad server actually loads and say, okay, I've got an advertiser who's willing to pay X right now, and here's his creative, and then lining that up ready so that the ad server they can then decide if they've got something that's more valuable in the ad server or if they can pay for this advert, load this advert that's come up with header bidding.
Is that happening in real time? So page is loading and then the header bidding algorithms are basically checking which ad to put in there, either on the highest based on value.
It happens as everything loads together. It happens there. So there's now containers came along more recently in the last sort of 6 to 9 months or so.
Right.
As you get more and more header bidding solutions,
Got
and a header bidding. I mean, one of the original ones was someone like Criteo or Amazon with A9, where they'll go with very specific and unique demand. And will look for a very small number of users, but can justify that they're going to pay a higher price for them, so they get in before the ad server actually has a look at anything.
Right.
And as you start to get more of these kinds of solutions, so it started to get a little bit trickier for publishers to manage.
Yeah, everyone wants their tags on the page.
Yes, exactly. And it's everyone's got a good story to say why their tag should be on there or not. Container wrappers starting to come along, and with the premise of managing all of these different header bidding solutions, which is not necessarily the most simple. I mean, there's a lot of, it's a very new sector, so publishers don't necessarily understand all the ins and outs. and it's developing. I think it's really the evolution towards the next version of the ad server that we're in the middle of.
So in general, are publishers now, and I appreciate you'll have to generalize massively, but are they making much more money out of their inventory than they were, say, 6-7 years ago because of programmatic now, in real terms?
Yeah, I'd say they are.
Yeah, okay.
I think they're able to monetize areas of their site which were just impossible to monetize before.
Yeah, okay. So even though some of them are faced, I guess if you're a print publisher and you've got challenges, you're actually monetizing your digital properties more efficiently. What about the role of content? So I guess in your exchange, I'm guessing everything's around data. But are you seeing the kind of combination of content and data becoming more and more impactful?
Yeah, I'm seeing aspects, not necessarily on the advertising side. I mean, data very much so, and is a real big part of actually the level of monetization you can have on there.
Yeah.
However, we are seeing a lot of deals between content providers and technology providers where you can actually use similar platforms to deliver both.
Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of, that would be really...
Well, it's not something I actually provide, so I don't have the real ins and outs, but I have seen in the sports sector, I've definitely seen a lot of both content and monetization deals that
done at the same time.
That happen at the same time, and where you'll have a platform that will provide both the content, and they might do that for either for free or a very low price, but then they'll also monetize everything that happens on both sides at the same time. I
guess one of the things that it sort of interests me personally is if you, in particular, I guess with a review hat on, but if you look at if you have it with a consumer hat on and you look at a consumer journey of say 6 months or whatever in terms of buying, say a car, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe it's a new car, and maybe the buying cycle's a year, then actually it feels like there's an opportunity where during the life cycle of that shopping period, it should be possible to serve different types of content based on the signals that the consumer is giving back to us all.
Yes.
Is that kind of an area you're starting to dabble in?
So it's a massive area of personal interest.
Okay.
And it's, as a sector, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
I don't think there's the ability to actually, either from a technology but also from a consumer privacy point of view, to actually track those users effectively across those different parts of that life cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a sort of deep personal interest in Internet of Things and everything that can be done with that. And I think programmatic is really going to be at the heart of that going forward, because Internet of Things is all about the communication of data packets and the communication of need through those different data packets. Yeah. And to be able to do that at scale and accurately and in real time, it needs to be on the same kind of basis that programmatic advertising is based on. And I think that the signals that you can get from the different programmatic devices, so whether they are sort of flow meters you get in production cycles, or geographic location you get from vehicles or devices, or shopping patterns you get from storage units, etc. To be able to actually mix them all together and interpret those signals so that it comes into a global consumer decision is where I think we are going eventually, but there's so many standards that need to be put in place for it to scale that we're a few years off yet.
And no one party can do it all, so I guess it's kind of... I've got to ask, but let me kind of move into it slowly. How about we talked about trust within the industry from the buyers and I guess the sellers of ad space, the publishers. What about trust with consumers and potential consumer fatigue with basically machines serving up ads that actually just make the advertiser the most money? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? And I guess where I'm going is you're kind of going ultimately into ad blocking. Kind of that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was brought up on 1970s and 1980s TV where you actually looked forward to the ad breaks. Yeah. The Nescafe Gold Blend couple and whatever other antics they did, and it's not necessarily why I got into advertising, but it did make me sort of really appreciate advertising in there. And I don't think, as a sector, we've done this in the internet. I don't know anybody who looks forward to seeing an internet ad.
No, they're quite intrusive. But I think most people would see them as, well, either you don't notice them, but as soon as you do, they're intrusive, I guess, potentially.
Some of them are, and some
I
of
said
them are
that,
quite
you didn't,
clever.
but
Exactly. But it's, and I think that we...
some of the to be fair, actually some of the pre-roll ads, if you watch them, can be quite entertaining, actually, in a video or something, I
was watching the highlights of the second presidential debate last night. And some of the ads were more interesting than the highlights were. It was kind of, which is, I actually reran it to see the ad again. But I think as a sector, we've fallen into the trap of showing more advertising means making more money. And we work a lot with our publishers to say, look, reduce the number of slots that you've got on there, reduce the frequency that you show ads to consumers, because they'll engage more with them and actually generate more from that. And
that's a leap of faith for the publisher, I guess, to start with.
But we're starting to be able to prove that with data.
Great.
I was talking to a publisher in France last week who was saying that they've just done this end of a 6-month study where they reduced on certain sides of their site, certain parts of their site, where they reduced the number of ad slots and even removed some altogether just to replace with one fairly intrusive interstitial, but happens like on a once in a 24-hour basis. And they've seen that engagement both with the content of the site and with the advertising have both risen, and so therefore as revenue with that. So I think as a sector we need to respect the user more, and we need to resist this temptation of, well, just shove a load more ad slots in there and we'll make more money, because long term that's not going to work.
Absolutely. I mean, and what about ad blockers? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I see various things from, the rise, headlines like the rise of ad blockers is ultimately going to lead to, the demise of the whole programmatic, to other people going, oh well, it's just noise in the background at the moment in ad blockers. What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's just noise. I think it's an expression of consumer dissatisfaction. I think the underlying root of the problem is just that they've identified something wrong with the system. I mean, they come to the internet and they want to access content, and a lot of them feel that the advertising is getting in the way of the content, and they don't understand the value exchange between actually seeing and having that advert displayed and having that content. They kind of think that content should be free on the internet. There's still this kind of
that it should
feeling
be
that it should be free. And they don't understand or appreciate the level of effort and the investment that goes behind actually producing that content for the internet. And we see, and German publishers were actually the first to kind of move in this area, but we see a lot of them putting up flags saying, right, we noticed you've got an ad blocker. We invest money to produce this content for you. So if you'd like to continue seeing this content, then please subscribe. Like SourcePoint are putting together this kind of tool to help this kind of thing.
Interesting.
Or if you don't want to pay money,
here's
some advertising, and we'll be more than happy to show you the content.
And do you know what the uptake's like?
I don't actually know. I was trying to think as I was saying that. I don't actually know the percentages of it, but there's a very sharp uptake for people switching advertising back on.
I was going to say, I suspect people go, oh, I don't want to subscribe, I'll put up with the ads, right?
There's not very many that will actually stomp up cash for it, but they will support looking at the ads for it.
That's the Spotify model, isn't it, I guess? It's kind of the ad music. Which is actually fascinating. Over the weekend, the family were commenting, because we use the free version, that the ads are appearing more often, and there was a discussion at home around that. And I could sense there's going to be a tipping point when a hand goes up saying, I'm fed up with the ads, let's go for subscription. It's interesting where the balance lies.
This is where I struggle with my existentialist self, is that I went for the subscription model a couple of years ago with Spotify because we got annoyed with the ads. Thinking, I sell advertising, I shouldn't be annoyed with the ads. We need to, but this is the kind of thing that's prompted me to do more about user-centric ads rather than revenue-centric ads.
Because there are definitely ads out there that I think everyone would recognise are user-centric, and actually there are ones that are not intrusive, and then I think you find the retargeting ones that retarget you after you've bought the same product, etc., where I think it just damages the experience for everyone. And then, I mean, leaving the world of ad blockers, and I'm going to dig out that, and we'll just see if we can share it with our listeners, that the example there.
Yes.
I think that's a great example. If you have to project sort of 5 years time, where do you think the industry's heading? As a kind of in terms of the ad world.
I think we're heading towards a lot of consolidation.
Okay.
There's a lot of players in this sector. It's a very confusing landscape for everyone involved.
It's massively confusing, and
yeah.
the language, everything is all. It's almost like a protectionist language. Actually,
Yes.
trying to penetrate it is
Yeah.
very, very difficult.
Yeah. And we found that. I've been back in this sector for almost 2 years now. I took a short break out in fintech and affiliate marketing.
Right.
And in the kind of 2 years that I was out, everything had changed again.
Yeah.
And this research that I was talking about earlier on, part of that prompted was this general confusion we see in the market. And people have now reached a stage in their careers where they are afraid to ask the basic questions again. It's like, what is a DSP?
Yeah.
You ask yourself, like, what's an SSP?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've had people who've signed 3-year exclusive contracts to use an SSP who don't know what an SSP is. And because they say, okay, I'm being told it's going to make more money for my site, it's going to do this and that. They understand the basic, what it is, but they don't actually understand how it works. And no one wants to ask why, and no one wants to ask and risk being made to look a fool of by asking what feels like an obvious question.
Yeah, and if you're a client dealing with an agency or dealing with yourselves, and if you've been in for a while, people expect you're sort of expected to know, right?
Yes, exactly. And I was expected to know. I lead a team of 45 experts in programmatic, and I was supposed to come in and know more about them from day 2. And I was going, so how does that work? What is that?
Yeah.
And I didn't feel particularly grown up about asking those kind of questions. But we used that, and we developed something which we call the School of Programmatic, which is every month we get about 100, 200 people together in a room, and we start at the basics, like what is an ad server, how does it work, what's a DSP, what's a DMP, and move forward. Like we've got one next Tuesday which is about header bidding and about the different strategies about that. And we're thinking about how we can improve it, maybe go towards kind of certification or something that's useful. And we try and do it in as neutral a tone as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got OpenX branding everywhere.
Sure.
Apart from that, it's not us selling our OpenX products. It's we'll talk about what the competition does. We'll have other kinds of vendors that will come in and talk about their view of the products. We'll have publishers that come in. We'll have agencies that come in. All about talking about in an open and honest and transparent way about what their impressions are and what their experiences are. And the questions we get are sometimes very basic and very honest. And so like, I don't know what this is. How does it work? And you get a debate in between the people as to, well, we tried it this way and we tried it that way, and we found it to be very valuable.
Yeah, it's a really great place to end. So we'll expect to see more consolidation in the industry, and that. But I also love that you're starting to provide education is probably not the right word, but learning for everybody out there, and actually how to keep up to speed with it all, and so that everyone can make the right decisions. Andrew, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.